My cousin Ashton is currently sitting in a VIP booth at an upscale downtown lounge. He is popping bottles of champagne with his wealthy friends. He thinks he just successfully stole our family cabinetry business. He believes he is walking away with a massive $545,000 luxury condo contract. He has no idea I already found his secret accounts. I froze every single dollar of his merchant processing an hour ago. Writing this on a fresh account because my sister knows my main. Everything else stays. Quick context, I'm Reid, the master artisan and former co-owner of our family shop. Ashton always thought he was the smart one. He wore tailored suits while I wore sawdust-covered work shirts. He handled the clients and the bank accounts. I spent 12 years sweating over complex design blueprints. We built a reputable brand in Columbus, Ohio. But Ashton got greedy. He wanted the luxury lifestyle without doing any actual labor. To understand how we got here, you have to understand our family dynamic. The workshop was started 40 years ago by our grandfather. He was a meticulous German immigrant who believed that hard work was the only true measure of a man. When he passed away, the shop was left to my father and his brother, Uncle Hank. My father was the quiet craftsman who taught me everything I know about joinery, wood selection, and CNC programming. Uncle Hank was the fast-talking salesman who managed the books. Naturally, when my father retired due to failing health, I stepped into his shoes as the head of production and design. When Uncle Hank stepped back, his son Ashton took over the front office. From day one, Ashton acted like he had just been appointed chief executive officer of a Fortune 500 company rather than co-running a specialized custom cabinetry business. He refused to wear boots in the shop. He complained about the smell of lacquer. He spent his first week remodeling his private office, buying an expensive mahogany desk and a leather chair that cost the business $4,200. I ignored it at the time because the orders were steady, and I just wanted to focus on my craft. I was 34, single, lived in a modest townhouse, and spent 60 hours a week ensuring our clients received flawless Walnut Island wraps and seamless modern vanities. The real tension started when Ashton decided he was too important for our local middle-class clientele. He stopped answering calls from the local custom builders who had supported our grandfather for decades. Instead, he wanted to court the high-end residential developers building million-dollar properties downtown. He started dressing exclusively in tailored suits, purchased a leased BMW using a corporate line of credit, and frequently took clients to Ocean Prime, racking up $800 dinner bills for steak and expensive scotch. Every time I brought up the inflated overhead, Ashton would brush me off with a patronizing smirk. He would say, "Reid, you know how to cut wood, but you do not know how to cultivate a brand. You have to spend money to make money. These developers do not want to buy cabinets from a guy who looks like he just crawled out of a lumber yard. They want to buy from a lifestyle brand." The first major red flag appeared about 18 months ago. We had just completed a beautiful kitchen installation for a prominent local surgeon. The project total was $74,000. When I checked our shared computer system to confirm the final milestone payment had cleared so I could order a fresh shipment of high-grade white oak, the invoice was marked as pending. I asked Ashton about it during our weekly brief. He did not even look up from his phone. He told me the doctor was disputing a minor blemish on the pantry door and was withholding the final $25,000 until it was resolved. I knew for a fact that the pantry door was flawless because I had personally inspected and hung it myself. I decided to call the client directly under the guise of a routine quality satisfaction check. The surgeon was incredibly polite and confessed he loved the kitchen. When I casually mentioned the final administrative paperwork, he sounded confused. He told me he had wired the entire $74,000 balance directly into our primary operating account 2 weeks prior. He even offered to forward the bank receipt. My stomach dropped. I went back to the office computer that night after Ashton had left. I logged into our online business banking portal. The $74,000 deposit was there, but it had only stayed in the operating account for less than 10 minutes. It had been immediately transferred out via an electronic payment to an unfamiliar account labeled W Enterprises LLC. I confronted Ashton the next morning. He looked surprised for a fraction of a second, then his face hardened into an expression of pure annoyance. He claimed that W Enterprises was a specialized marketing consultancy firm he had hired to help us secure larger commercial bids. He told me that $25,000 was a standard retainer fee. When I demanded to see a contract or a portfolio of work from this marketing firm, he slammed his hand on his desk. He reminded me that per our partnership agreement, he had full executive autonomy over corporate marketing and client relations, while I had control over shop operations. He told me to go back to my saws and let him grow the business. That was the first loop that needed closing. I began to keep a private log of every invoice, every deposit, and every transfer. Over the next 6 months, the pattern continued. Small amounts, usually between $5,000 and $15,000, would regularly bleed out of our operating account into W Enterprises LLC. Whenever I asked our regular lumber suppliers about our outstanding balances, they would mention that we were frequently late on payments, despite the shop being busier than ever. I was working 12-hour days, breathing in sawdust, and designing complex layouts, yet our actual profit distributions were shrinking. Ashton claimed inflation and rising material costs were eating our margins. Meanwhile, Ashton bought a brand new luxury watch. It was a beautiful timepiece that easily cost over $14,000. He openly flaunted it at a Sunday family cookout at Uncle Hank's house. My father, who was a quiet and observant man, noticed my exhaustion. He asked me how the finances were truly looking. Before I could answer, Uncle Hank interrupted us. He clapped Ashton on the back and announced to the entire extended family how proud he was of his son. He said, Ashton was single-handedly transforming our dusty old shop into a luxury empire. Ashton raised his glass of premium bourbon and smiled directly at me, saying that some people are born to be leaders, and others are born to be tools. I held my tongue at that dinner, but that was the exact moment I stopped viewing my cousin as a difficult partner and started viewing him as an active threat. I knew I needed to be smart. If I simply accused him of embezzlement without airtight proof, Uncle Hank and the rest of the family would protect him, and the business would be tied up in a messy, destructive internal battle that would ruin my father's retirement income. I needed absolute certainty. Over the next few months, I quietly began building my own exit strategy. I registered a brand new corporate entity called Timber and Line Designs LLC. I did this completely independently, using my own personal savings and a completely separate legal address. I did not tell a soul in my family, not even my father, because I did not want him to carry the burden of keeping a secret. I also applied for and secured a separate warehouse lease about 15 minutes down the road. It was smaller, but it had the necessary 3-phase power required to run high-end fabrication machinery. I began purchasing used, well-maintained woodworking equipment from liquidations across the state, slowly moving them into the new space during my rare weekend hours. Ashton was completely oblivious to my moves. He was too busy living the life of a high-rolling executive, spending time at country clubs and posting photos on social media from luxury hotel lounges. He believed I was completely trapped in the shop, bound by my loyalty to our grandfather's legacy. He truly believed he could treat the company bank account as his personal trust fund without consequence. The true scale of his betrayal came to light 3 weeks ago due to a simple administrative oversight on his part. He had left his personal tablet logged into his corporate email accounts on the shared shop network. A notification popped up on the main office desktop screen while I was updating our design software. It was an email from a major regional construction developer, Landmark Residential. The subject line read, "Approved contract and initial deposit confirmation for downtown luxury high-rise project." I clicked the email. My hands went cold as I read the attached documents. It was a fully executed commercial contract for the custom cabinetry of an entire 80-unit luxury condominium building downtown. The total contract value was exactly $545,000. It was the biggest project our family shop had ever been offered in its 40-year history. It was supposed to be the milestone that secured our financial future. But as I scrolled down to the legal signatures, I realized the horrifying truth. The contract was not made out to our family business, Vanguard Woodworks. It was made out to W Enterprises LLC. Ashton had used our shop's extensive portfolio of completed work, our private design rendering templates, and our long-standing corporate references to win the bid under his own secret dummy company. He had completely bypassed our partnership. Even worse, the contract required a 40% initial mobilization deposit to cover material costs and scheduling fees. That deposit amounted to exactly $218,000. The email confirmed that the $218,000 had already been successfully wired to W Enterprises LLC's corporate bank account. I dug deeper into the hidden files on the synchronized network. I found a scanned PDF document that made my blood run hot. It was a fraudulent corporate resolution for Vanguard Woodworks. It stated that I had voluntarily resigned my administrative position and relinquished my signing authority over the company's primary accounts due to personal health reasons. My signature at the bottom was a clumsy, digital forgery, clearly copied and pasted from an old employment tax form. Ashton had submitted this forged document to our primary commercial bank to strip me of my ability to view or freeze the core operational accounts, effectively locking me out of the financial side of our grandfather's legacy. He had planned this perfectly. He was going to use our physical facility, our heavy machinery, and my manual labor to fabricate all 80 units of high-end cabinetry for the landmark project. He would pay for the raw materials using Vanguard's remaining credit lines, forcing our family business to take on all the financial risk and debt. Then, once the project was complete, W Enterprises LLC would collect the final $327,000 balance from the developer, leaving Vanguard Woodworks completely bankrupt, over-leveraged, and hollowed out, while he walked away with over $500,000 clean. He thought he was a criminal mastermind. He thought I was just a naive artisan who would blindly build whatever blueprints were put in front of me without checking the corporate registration details. He was dead wrong. I did not confront him. I did not storm into his office. I took a deep breath, downloaded every single email, the forged corporate resolution, the bank transfer logs, and the landmark residential contract onto an encrypted flash drive. I then called an intellectual property and corporate fraud attorney who came highly recommended by an old college friend. We met in a quiet conference room downtown the following afternoon. I laid out the evidence. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah, looked through the forged corporate resolution and smiled grimly. She said, "Reid, your cousin has committed clear corporate fraud, bank fraud, and identity theft. We could file a massive lawsuit tomorrow, but civil litigation takes months, sometimes years. By the time a judge rules, he could easily empty the W Enterprises accounts, hide the cash, and declare bankruptcy for the family shop, leaving you with nothing but a mountain of legal bills." I looked at Sarah and asked, "What are my immediate proactive options?" "I want to protect the machinery, the brand name, and the physical assets my grandfather built." Sarah leaned back and tapped her pen. She explained a powerful legal reality. She said, "Because Ashton filed a forged corporate resolution with the bank, he violated the core operating agreement of your partnership. Furthermore, the physical building where the workshop operates is not owned by the business. It is owned by a separate real estate holding company that your father transferred entirely to your name last year for tax purposes. You are the sole landlord. The business is currently on a month-to-month lease. Additionally, you hold the sole trademark registration for the actual brand name and logos of the shop." A slow smile crept across my face as the puzzle pieces came together. I did not need to wait for a slow court system to hand down a verdict. I had the legal authority to execute a devastating counter-move myself. I spent the next 2 weeks working normal hours at the shop, acting completely oblivious. Ashton was increasingly arrogant, barely showing up before noon, spending hours at high-end tailors getting fitted for new custom suits, and bragging to Uncle Hank on the phone about how he was about to single-handedly change the family's financial zip code. He even had a brand new top-tier Mercedes SUV delivered to the shop on a Tuesday afternoon, stepping inside with a smug look to show off the custom leather interior. He told me he had taken out a small corporate bridging loan to facilitate operational growth, but I already knew he had used the stolen $218,000 deposit as collateral to secure his personal luxury lease. He had no idea that while he was test-driving luxury vehicles, I was quietly executing my plan. First, I utilized my sole ownership of Timber and Line Designs LLC to officially purchase the physical machinery, tools, and inventory from Vanguard Woodworks. I executed this asset sale at a fair market value evaluation based on the outstanding debts Ashton had accumulated on our corporate lines. Essentially, my new company paid off Vanguard's legitimate local suppliers and outstanding lumber bills in exchange for the title transfer of the automated CNC routers, the industrial edge banders, and the specialized dust collection systems. Next, because I was the sole owner of the physical real estate, I drafted an official 24-hour emergency eviction notice for Vanguard Woodworks due to material breaches of the lease agreement, specifically the illegal financial activities taking place on the premises. Finally, I drafted a comprehensive, formal disclosure package for the executive team at Landmark Residential. The package included the original contract, the evidence of Ashton's dummy corporation fraud, the forged bank documents, and a formal proposal from my new entity, Timber and Line Designs LLC, to fulfill the entire 80-unit cabinetry order at a 5% discount, utilizing the exact same master craftsmanship and machinery they had originally relied upon. The climax arrived on a crisp Thursday morning. Ashton had scheduled an elaborate lunch celebration at a high-end country club downtown to officially toast the Landmark development team. He had invited Uncle Hank, my father, and several prominent local business figures to witness his grand moment of triumph. He wanted to publicly solidify his status as the new patriarch of the family business. He left the workshop at 11 in the morning, looking immaculate in a tailored charcoal suit, his new luxury watch gleaming on his wrist. As soon as his Mercedes pulled out of the gravel driveway, my prepared operational team moved in. I had hired a professional commercial rigging and transport crew. 3 massive flatbed semi-trucks pulled into the lot. Over the next 6 hours, my crew systematically dismantled, packed, and loaded every single piece of heavy industrial machinery, every hand tool, every specialized software dongle, and every single sheet of premium raw lumber inventory from the building. We cleared the entire workshop until there was nothing left but sweeping piles of sawdust on the concrete floor. While the trucks were driving toward my new secure warehouse location, I personally drove to our primary commercial bank. I presented my attorney, the original unadulterated corporate operating agreement, and the definitive proof of the forged signature to the regional branch director. Faced with undeniable evidence of bank fraud and the immediate threat of a massive liability claim, the bank instantly froze all corporate lines tied to Vanguard Woodworks. More importantly, because Ashton had linked his dummy entity W Enterprises to our shared corporate merchant processing platform to route the construction deposits, the bank's fraud division placed an immediate global freeze on the merchant account, locking up the remaining portion of the $218,000 deposit and halting all outbound transfers. By 4 in the afternoon, the physical shop was a completely empty shell. I walked through the vacant space, turned off the master circuit breakers, and padlocked the heavy commercial bay doors. I taped the official emergency eviction notice and the asset liquidation paperwork directly to the front glass entrance. I then drove straight to the luxury downtown lounge where Ashton was hosting his post-celebration after-party with his friends and Uncle Hank. I walked through the glass doors, still wearing my sawdust-covered work boots, a faded denim shirt, and safety glasses hanging around my neck. The contrast was hilarious. The lounge was filled with affluent people in expensive attire sipping cocktails. Ashton was standing at the center of a velvet-roped VIP section, holding a glass of vintage champagne, laughing loudly with Uncle Hank and 2 representatives from Landmark Residential. When Ashton saw me walking toward his table, his face twisted into a look of absolute disgust. He stepped out of the VIP enclosure and intercepted me before I could get too close to his guests. "Reid, what the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, keeping his voice low but dripping with venom. Look at you. You are covered in filth. I told you this was an exclusive event for executives and clients. You are embarrassing me. Get back to the shop and finish the sanding panels for the West Side project. I looked at him calmly, wiped a small speck of wood dust from my watch, and spoke loud enough for the entire table to hear. There is no shop left to go back to, Ashton. Ashton scoffed, rolling his eyes. What are you talking about? Did a machine break down? Fix it. That is what I pay you for. I smiled, stepped past him, and looked directly at the two representatives from Landmark Residential. Gentlemen, I am Reid, the actual master artisan behind the designs you approved for your high-rise development. I want to personally introduce myself and hand you this delivery. I placed a neat corporate folder on their table. Inside was the fully executed contract from my new entity, Timber and Line Designs LLC, along with the complete forensic file detailing how Ashton had used a fraudulent dummy corporation and forged signatures to intercept their project. The lead developer opened the folder, his eyes widening as he saw the forged corporate resolution and the paper trail linking our family shop's assets to Ashton's personal shell company. He looked up at Ashton, his face turning an angry shade of red. Ashton, what is the meaning of this? Who is W Enterprises? Ashton's polished demeanor instantly shattered. He turned pale, staring at the documents in the developer's hands. He tried to laugh it off, his voice cracking slightly. Oh, that is just a standard corporate restructuring document. It is a minor tax optimization vehicle. My cousin Reid does not understand high-level corporate finance. It is all perfectly standard. It is not standard, Ashton, I said calmly. I filed an emergency corporate fraud injunction with the state this morning. The bank has officially frozen the merchant processing account for W Enterprises LLC due to identity theft and document forgery. Every single dollar of the $218,000 mobilization deposit you stole is completely locked up. Uncle Hank stood up from his chair, his face flushed with anger. Reid, stop this nonsense right now. You are humiliating your cousin in public. How dare you bring your petty jealousy into his big moment? It is not a moment, Uncle Hank, I said, turning to look at him. It is a liquidation. I am the sole owner of the physical real estate. I have officially evicted Vanguard Woodworks effective immediately for material breach of contract. Furthermore, my new entity has legally purchased every single machine, tool, and piece of inventory to satisfy the debts Ashton ran up on our suppliers. The old shop is completely empty. It is locked up. There is nothing left. Ashton stepped toward me, his fists clenched, his expensive champagne glass shaking violently in his hand. You cannot do that. I am the executive director of that business. Those machines belong to the company. They belong to a company that you defrauded, I replied smoothly. The titles have already been legally transferred to my new clean corporation. And, since you no longer have a workshop, tools, or employees, you cannot fulfill the contract for Landmark Residential. However, my new company can. The lead developer stood up, closed the folder firmly, and looked at Ashton with pure contempt. Our legal department will be issuing a formal cancellation of our contract with W Enterprises by the end of the day. We will also be contacting the Financial Fraud Division regarding the unauthorized routing of our deposit. Reid, we will be at your new office tomorrow morning at 9 to sign the direct contract with your new company. The developers walked out of the lounge without looking back. Ashton stood frozen in the middle of the room. The silence around the table was absolute. His wealthy friends were suddenly looking down at their phones, trying to distance themselves from the immediate collapse of his reputation. Within 48 hours, the full reality of his total ruin set in. Because the merchant processing account was frozen by the bank's fraud unit, Ashton could not access a single penny of the stolen money to pay back the luxury car lease or his massive personal credit cards. The dealership repossessed his brand new Mercedes SUV directly from his apartment parking lot less than a week later. Without the prestige of the family business or his luxury lifestyle assets, his high-rolling friends completely vanished. He had to pack up his expensive apartment and move back into his childhood bedroom at Uncle Hank's house because he could no longer pass a basic background check for a rental agreement due to the pending corporate fraud investigation. His tailored suits and luxury watch were sold to a high-end consignment shop just to cover his immediate retainers for a criminal defense attorney. Uncle Hank tried to call my father, begging him to make me drop the corporate fraud charges and return the machinery to the old building. My father, for the first time in his life, raised his voice to his brother. He told Hank that Ashton had tried to destroy 40 years of family history for a shiny watch and a German car, and that he was lucky I had only liquidated the business instead of sending the police straight to his front door. Today, Timber and Line Designs LLC is operating at full capacity in our new facility. The 80-unit landmark contract is currently being fabricated on our automated CNC machines, and the margins are healthier than ever because we no longer have an arrogant executive bleeding our accounts dry for country club memberships and expensive steaks. I am back where I belong, creating high-end work with my own hands, knowing that every dollar earned is completely clean. Ashton learned the hard way that a fancy suit and a borrowed title cannot mask a complete lack of substance, and you cannot build a luxury lifestyle using blueprints you stole from the man who actually owns the tools. Speaking of family secrets buried deep in business records, it reminds me of the time my aunt tried to use a fraudulent power of attorney to sell my grandmother's historical farmhouse out from under 4 siblings while she was still recovering in the hospital.